Exploring the unknown, from conspiracies to mysteries, you are entering the conspiracy sector.
Well, welcome everyone to this very special program. I am your host, Aubrey Batchelor. Sailing this creepy Christmas ship with me is Chris Jacobs, and you are entering the Isla de la Muñecas, or the conspiracy sector, I mean. Today, we got a very creepy Christmas for you. We're going to be talking about just that, Isla de la Muñecas. And for those of you that don't know that, that is translated into English for Island of the Dolls. And many of you have probably heard about this topic, seen the story online, on TV, somewheres about it. But it's a very strange one, you know. I guess the dedication that the person that built this island was pretty immense. I got to give him that, you know, and we'll get into the story a little bit. But to spend your life building something like that, it just seems kind of crazy in a way.
It's up there with the Winchester House, yeah. So
A little bit, yeah. Have we talked about the Winchester House yet?
no, I think that'd be a good one to do at some point
Yeah,
too. Winchester House, yeah.
yeah. That's one of my. I'd like to go out there and see that. I also like to go see the Island of the Dolls sometime too, but I don't
hmm
know. Uh, I think going to the Winchester House would probably be easier than going to the Island of the Dolls. But
I've been to the Winchester House. That's actually interesting.
oh,
So
really?
yeah. And you're in there, for a tall person, if you're in the basement, you're like this. It's like right here. Like I'm literally touching the head to the concrete. So they have to have hard hats on. So
Mm.
yeah. And I read somewhere about the Island of the Dolls. If you want to get into that, you got to request the real place. They like to try to take you to a fake one too. So
Mm.
I read I read that earlier this morning. So I
I
thought
know
that
that
was
it's kind of similar to the Island of the Dolls is similar to Venice in a way, you know, and it's not an actual city, you know, but you have like the Mexican version of gandolas, you know, the people that sing and row you on the boat, you know, you got to hire private canoers, you know, down there to take you to the island. And I think
hmm
it was about 100. I was reading $140 to get somebody to take you there uh,
hmm yeah.
to make the trip. And this island of the dolls, you know, it's actually an agricultural island that was made. You know, it's an artificial island that they built for farming purposes. And it's very strange how it all come to be the island of the dolls. You know, from uh, everything that took place, really. You know, and we'll get into the story here. I think I'll read this one little article here. Uh, Hold on here. Let me get this ready. I've been having internet connection issues lately too, for some
Yeah,
reason.
same here. No, yeah, same here. It's been pretty shitty some days, and then other days it's been pretty strong. Today's somewhere in between. So yeah.
Right here, this is an article from ancientorigins.net, which it's a pretty neat website. I've looked at other things on here other than the Island of the Dolls. See, you got news, origins, history, artifacts, myths, places unexplained, weird facts. Kind of a neat little website to kill some time if you're bored. But this is an article. It doesn't have the name of the person that wrote it, but is the Island of the Dolls haunted? An eerie tribute to a little Mexican girl. The Island of the Dolls, also known as La Isla de las Muñecas in Spanish, is a chinampa in Mexico City, Mexico. And a chinampa, that's the artificial island, you know, that we're talking about, like the agricultural island for farming purposes. As its name suggests, dolls are found throughout the island, placed there by its former owner, Julian Santana Barrera. And this is the guy that, you know, dedicated his life that we were talking about in the opening to building this kind of creepy castle of Doll Island. This unusual, not to mention creepy, feature of the island has turned it into a tourist attraction. The island of the dolls is not a natural island, but an artificial one. It is a chinempa, sometimes referred to as a floating island, an agricultural innovation developed by pre-Columbian Mesoamericans in the Valley of Mexico. The island of dolls is located on the Tecilio Lake. Gonna butcher some of these names probably. In the canals of Xochimilco. One of the
Yeah,
16
we'll
boroughs
we'll
of
probably
Mexico
butcher
City.
those names, folks, but yeah, it's hard to pronounce. Yeah.
That's Xochi. Yeah, I think it's Xochimilco. Yeah, one of the 16 boroughs of Mexico City. How was the island of dolls created? The story of the island of dolls begins in the 1950s. At that time, there was a man by the name of Julian Santana Barrera who decided to live his life as a recluse. He left his wife and family and moved to the island to live in solitude. Like we were talking in pre-show, it's very similar to like the mountain man of America that goes and isn't seen for a long time and comes back and is just socially different.
Mhm.
Uh, while on the island, Santana Barrera allegedly said that he was haunted by the ghost of a little girl who drowned in a nearby canal. And he claimed to have heard the tormented cries of the girl and the sound of her footsteps in the night. Some believe that the girl did drown in the canal and that Santana Barrera found her body, but when he did, it was too late and he forever was tormented by the fact that he couldn't save her. But others are in the opinion that this incident never happened and that it was merely a figment of the hermit's imagination. And that's where this story really grows and becomes even more popular. You know, there's all these things. Did it happen? Did it not happen? Was he making some of this up and getting a following to get people out there, you know? Because I must say, you know, it is unique. I don't think there's any other place on earth to where there's, you know, just a creep factor of an island with dolls on it.
Yeah.
So this guy has a very niche market and he hit on it, you know, in a way. Regardless of what the others thought, Santana Barrera decided to do something to appease the spirit of the girl. Some accounts claim that not long after the body of the girl was found, Santana Barrera saw a doll floating in the canal. The doll may have belonged to the girl, and Santana Barrera took it as a sign from the girl's spirit. He fished the doll out of the water and hung it on a tree as a sign of respect to the dead girl. Why are there so many dolls on the island of dolls? Santana Barrera did not stop there, and he continued to collect dolls for his island. The recluse collected dolls that were floating in the canals that looked for them in the rubbish heaps near his home. Moreover, he is said to have traded with locals. In exchange for the dolls, he gave them the agricultural produce that he was growing on the island. So you're trading food for dolls, that way he could grow the collection. Once the dolls were obtained, Santana Barrera would hang them on the island's trees. A number of dolls were also kept in his cabin. Santana Barrera displayed the dolls as he found them. He did not make any effort to clean them or fix them up. Thus, many of the dolls are visibly damaged, some missing their heads, others a limb or two. Furthermore, exposure to the elements also caused the dolls to become disfigured over time. As a consequence, the dolls imparted a spooky aura to the island. Soon, stories were attached to these eerie dolls. For instance, some believed that the dolls were possessed by the spirits of small girls and that they come to life at night. Living on the island of dolls, and you can see a picture there just to how kind of crazy and creepy it looks. Looks like a bunch of dolls that were been abused by young boys. You know, they stole their sister's dolls and wanted to
Took
cut them
blow torches
off.
to them, all this other stuff.
Yeah. Santana Barrera is not afraid of the dolls and even regarded them as his protectors. In time, the unusual island attracted attention, and Santana Barrera was glad to show curious visitors around the island of dolls. Santana Barrera died in 2001. According to some reports, he died of a heart attack. The more common claim, however, is that he drowned in the same area where he believed the little girl had died. After Santana Barrera's death, locals decided to maintain the island of dolls. The island has been featured in articles and television programs, making it famous. The island of dolls is a tourist attraction today, and those who visit the island often leave their own dolls there, which in a way is a continuation of Santana Barrera's work while he was still alive. That's kind of cool. You know, it kind of living on through other people, you know. I bet you that he didn't expect that to happen. But that gives you a
No.
pretty good overlay of what the island of dolls is all about and
Mm.
the dedication that he had building the place, you know. But why did he do it? Was there a dead girl? Is it like we were talking? It's kind of the La Llorona sort of vibes a little bit. Only it's more of like a saint dedication, to appease the spirits and through. But to pick up on that, I was heard these college professors at some university did a study about why things are creepy. And dolls, were like number 3 on the list, like doll collections, just because of their, it's been portrayed in Hollywood too. Chucky, the movie Chucky, that is a Fright Night terror movie for you. It's because they're like close to humanness, and it's just kind of one of those eerie things. I remember my great aunt. She had a doll collection. I would not like to go down there as a little kid for some reason, staring at you, all of them. There was the ones that had the glass eyeballs, old dolls, One of these things going to blink at me.
Oh, I hate that. There's a couple things going on here. Even if the original thing didn't happen, which I'm thinking, maybe something happened, but at the same time, at that point, it turns into a tulpa where people form the story out of belief, and it takes on a life of its own. Now, with dolls, the creepy thing about this is, with anything with a face on it, you can literally bind a soul to a doll. There is a magical technique out there. I'm not going to explain how to do it. I'm just saying that it can be done.
More of like a witchcraft spell?
Yeah, where you can literally bind someone's ghost to a doll, and that doll literally, it's like the whole Chucky complex where what did he do? He transferred his soul into a doll to get away from his enemies and stuff, so he could kill them.
Prime example that we all heard of Robert the doll.
Yes,
that was a supposed the boy's spirit. He died as a child, and apparently he's living through the doll now.
Oh, I've heard of this. There was also paintings are the same way, skulls are the same way. This is why I don't have crystal skulls around, because they act as a conduit. The only ones we have around are ones we create and have a protection spell, so spells and shungite and silver and stuff around them because they act as this go-between. That's where the whole crystal skull thing comes from. That's a totally separate episode if we want to do that sometimes. But it's like sometimes like the Mitchell Hedges thing and everything. But this is unique because it's a human analog. If you have anything that's in a perfect human analog, statues that also are linked to, say, a god or a goddess, that it's like the as above, so below, where they have a link or a bridge between, where they could be somewhere else and use that as a go-between. We call those edifices or communication arts, like how we create the shungite one. In this, you say you have a doll, say you have some ghost that maybe just wants to screw with somebody. They jump into it and make the thing just turn its head and blink or something. It's easier because it's a human analog, right? Or an actual like miniature to scale copy of a person. So what is a ghost? It's a fragment of a much larger oversoul. So that's kind of the same to scale as above, so below, like macro, micro magic that's going on there. So knowing that, you could easily take a doll, either bind a soul to it to maybe enact some kind of punishment or something like that on it. Some aliens have done that, done soul trapping nonsense that way. Or you can take it, say you have a voodoo doll, and say it's a link or an entanglement, a quantum entanglement to that particular person via a body part, like skin, hair, what have you. And then you take that micro version over here, expand it back over to the macro, and you can cause that person damage over here. So with the Island of the Dolls, what this is doing is it's fueling this beast in a similar fashion, where you say you have like a legend that may or may not be true. I'm thinking there's a 50-50 thing going on here.
Me too.
If the person died where the little girl died, that's actually a layer of like ghost activity that could go on for centuries if it's not audited or cleared. That happens with like impressions or remnants of
more of like a residual haunting sort of a thing.
Yeah, residual haunting, and those layers can build. Like there was a little girl that died on a balcony of a hotel one time, where the father had murdered her. The person that was staying there, this couple that was staying there, this man was reenacting what the rage the father was going through, and almost killed his own daughter the same way. So it goes that route. But if it did not happen, which again, there's 50-50. The other half of the 50-50 spectrum here is tulpa, or thought form, or poltergeist formation, where somebody creates like a Franken essence of some kind, or Franken entity, or a concept. Like, say if you put the dolls on the island, people just continue this on. It's a perpetual motion machine that, like, say if you are appeasing a spirit or you're appeasing an entity or something like that, it is a continuous thing. You're reaffirming the existence of the thing by continuing to appease the thing. So say you also have the Hajj, or the big black stone over in Mecca in the Middle East. They walk counterclockwise, or also walking Widdishins is also another form of this, where you walk counter to what the energy torsion field is, keeping something trapped, something in place. But from what I heard in channelings, that was keeping something stuck in there, kind of like a Pandora's box. But at the same time, while you're trying to trap something, you're reaffirming its existence. Therefore, it's a Chinese finger trap. I'm thinking of the Island of the Dolls is something very similar on a smaller scale, where it's a constant refueling of the concept over and over again.
Does sound like it. And it does sound like that.
Yeah,
mix that with
I've
that,
seen this many times. Yeah,
like the tulpa theory and things along that line. It just kind of all comes back around and stays afloat in the middle of the island.
Yeah, and no pun intended, because it's a floating island. But
yeah.
But the thing of it is, like, say if we were to like put a doll on that island, say if we were to go there and as a sign of respect leave a doll, what kind of binding is that creating? Is it reaffirming the mythos by which the tulpa is being formed, or is it appeasing? Or if you go the other 50% route, where there's an actual, say, a little girl, is it trapping that little girl there to inhabit all the dolls, preventing her from moving forward? Or is it actually fueling something else, say like a mimicking demon that took that form altogether? You don't know. So,
and with all the energy that place has created, with the offerings and things like that, what do you think would happen to somebody if they took a doll off the island and take home as a keepsake? We've heard about that happening with different things. It could be what is the one thing I was reading one time? Somebody took something from some offering, place, and then they were nothing but haunted and had bad luck, and
that falls under curse territory at that point.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it was like a curse. I wonder if something like that would happen if somebody ended up taking a doll from there. I didn't see any stories about that. Possibly people taking a doll there and having.
It would almost be a worthy experiment to try if somebody is ballsy enough to do it, to see what the outcome is. But it's like, I'm not going to do it. But
I won't be the guinea pig. I'm sorry.
No. But if some poor schmuck wants to try that sometime, you tell us the results when you've done this. So it's like, I've heard of horror stories, no pun intended, of people that have taken things, and the entanglement to a particular place then brings that energy in, no matter what your intentions were. I used to put in my orgone pieces, like, say, the smashed pennies you get from all the tourist sites and battlefields and all this other stuff where it has the name on it. I would put those in Tower Busters, getting them to link back to the Shungite grid so that it would clear those specific places from a distance, anchoring the name to the object, therefore it clears it. I had to stop after a while because it had hit a critical mass type of flow going back and forth. It worked, but it stopped after it got disrupted after a while, or it got flatlined after a while. But the same goes, say, if you take an object from a haunted place, what are you entangling with, bringing it back? Therefore, in the tradition of what people think a curse is, it would then take away from abundance. It would take away from your life force. It would take away from any good things you have going, and try to convert that torsion field in your life over to its torsion field. I always say that the strongest torsion field wins, or the energy force that you're exuding wins. But if it's a landmass that has all this following, say the Island of Dolls, bad idea to take anything from there with that type of tulpa in like that. But we pulled a boneheaded move one time when we went to the Georgia Guidestones, but long before it disappeared.
I wish I could have seen it before it disappeared. I always wanted to, and then
Um,
yeah. What do you think it disappeared?
well, what happened was I had a piece of the Georgia Guidestones that was laying on the ground. I took it with me from the site, and it had a lot of crap surrounding it. I put it into a fire to cleanse it. Eventually, I had to destroy the piece. What ended up happening in that site? I'll briefly say what happened was the day that it exploded, when the thing went boom, and somebody was seen running from there. People thought it was a bomb at first. What took place was everybody's heard of CERN. When they say white hats took it over. I don't like using the terminology of that, but it's some benevolent people took it over and wanted to use it for genuine good. They drummed some of the other regime out of there. It's not like a war against black hat, white hat, spy versus spy. It's more of a grayish area. But with this, what happened was just before the boom, if people saw on the security camera the lights that were aimed at the Guidestones got brighter for a second, which denoted a directed energy weapon that was electromagnetic in nature. It charged up the light bulbs, and then boom. What it needed was a grounding rod of some sort, like an object to connect that to. So that's what, hence the person that was running in and out of there was planting some kind of maybe implant or something in there to connect the weapon to. And then boom, they tested this weapon out months before on the George Floyd mural. When it exploded, it was the same group that did that. So yeah, talk about entanglement. It was basically a death clock, basically saying what the cabal wanted to do to people over a period of time, within certain astrological alignments. But usually it's at certain times of year where you have spring, summer, of course, fall, winter. Of course, you have the strongest being Halloween. Of course, you have the solstices, equinoxes, and all in between, the cross quarters, and all in between. These groups they believe very firmly they can only do certain really meaningful events aligned with certain alignments. So they wanted to throw diseases out there. They wanted to throw pandemics out there. They wanted to throw false flags out there, distractions out there, looshings for reptilians out there. Any of these types of things.
Can't you see the sizzle and the confusion?
Yes, exactly. And they know when to confuse people to blanket over a special time of year, like a solstice, like Halloween, like the summer solstice, all of it. Even if you look back at this year's summer solstice, the Schumann resonance report that came out with all those weird X's and squiggle patterns and everything, that was an AI jumble that was overlaid. Some people tried to say the Matrix, but it was like this mind control overlay people were seeing that, so people don't connect. And the main purposes of this is so people don't connect to true spirit and to true benevolent source creator and all that within the real version of you within, or oversoul. I know this went slightly off subject, but this time of entanglement applies to some of these larger places, like meaningful things like Georgia Guidestones, or even the Island of Dolls in a smaller way, where if you grab a piece, you're changing your overall tapestry, you're changing your overall torsion field and what that looks like, or you're opening yourself up for something to alter your tapestry or your whole life pattern at that point. And it's basically a no-no. Like I said, if there's some poor schmuck that wants to test this in a scientific way, they can have it. But it's but yeah, that's where I'm at.
It minorly reminds me, just north of Alamosa, Colorado, there's a UFO Watchtower. I think I might have sent you pictures of that, where you can leave offerings there. It supposedly lies on a vortex. There's a vortex right there on the property. And you do get a different feeling when you're there. But the similar thing, they had like a warning sign, if they even had a warning sign, if you take these, you would be plagued by bad luck. Sort of a deal.
Exactly. Oh yeah. They're not entirely wrong, even though they might be empowering it by declaring that people believe it, and then they create the tulpa thought form in that way too. It goes both ways there. So they know they have to inform, like the cabal. They'll put information out there knowing full well they have to say it to get people to connect to it. So that's why you see the cabal and the secret government, deep state forces not keeping their mouth shut 100% of the time, because in order to make the magic work, they have to say it. They have to speak about it somewhere. So, and they know that's how the magic works. It irritates them a lot of times that they have to do it, but they do it. In order to get a narrative out there, they have to really imprint it or pin it in place. And
well, yeah, and that's kind of leading into our next topic a little bit, not quite yet, but you're talking about all these people making up things, the powers at play, how they want to manipulate and deceive and things along that line. Wait till you see what we get in the second half of the show.
Oh yeah, it's going to get interesting. But also, a lot of times people confuse the La Llorona case with the Island of the Dolls, and that's where a woman killed her children, and because the native tribe at the time wouldn't accept a half Spaniard, half native at that time, and her children were that. Even though she was raped, she kills them, immediately regrets it, and it causes this wailing, death, like wailing people here in that area, hence the La Llorona. And that goes in line with the banshee sound of like somebody's going to die. That's more of a ghoul that would make like a shriek when somebody's going to die. It falls under that. And also Orion influences, where you had these white banshee women that would steal souls and things of that nature. Not all of them did it. Some are fairy-like beings, but in this case, people screw up the La Llorona case with Island of the Dolls, because they both involve both a story that's been told, a death in some case, and a tulpa. So they both kind of, and the culture too. They both kind of ring the same, kind of like the same vibe.
Yeah, they do.
A little bit. So I wanted to add that in there, because people tend to screw up the two a lot. Because they're so similar in some fashions. People think La Llorona is the Island of the Dolls little girl, and I want to make sure people know they're separate stories, but people screw them up a lot. And I did it first too. You can clearly see they're two slightly separate time frames, and they are they're separate time frames, and they're two different cases. So
slightly similar mythos.
Similar mythos behind them, and people add in the owl witch mythology in there too, with the Hispanic and native cultures, and that is basically in Greek mythology that was a harpy. Like a genetically created, obviously the Anunnaki created a creature at some point that's a naked lady that has owl features and preys on children. That's the Native Americans and Mexicans' number one bad guy that's out there, or number two bad guy. Number one is a serpent god. So
and speaking of gods and the Island of the Dolls, he was treating these dolls as saint-like figures, so who knows what religious connotations and energies he could have created there. It's kind of hearsay, but what if he was also dabbling in the light and the dark? What if he was doing some witchcraft, spell binding, like you were talking earlier, to get a soul to jump into a doll? And maybe he figured that out and nobody else knew. That's why you get that aura whenever you're there, minus the tulpa-like. Purposefully, it's just like I said, just hearsay, conjecture, but who's to say that he wasn't, doing witchcraft like spells on these dolls to get him to do what he wanted?
Oh yeah, you can bind a certain frequency. It's always a frequency game, where if you have a frequency here and a frequency here, if you want to have this frequency go here, you bring this frequency here and bring it to this area. This is how the galactics travel, both in time, space, dimension. So this can be true of an edifice or a doll too. If you have a certain soul's frequency, you can transform this over here and mash them together. And some people know this. Now, there's a friend of ours that makes dolls that she puts a shungite nugget in the center of it, which is an uncorruptible element, by the way. It can't be corrupted by any sort of darkness at all. So what happens is, there are beings out there like elementals, gnomes, and such that will come to little children inside of these dolls and other dolls like teddy bears, things of that nature, and comfort children in an oppressive time frame. If people want to see an episode we did on, it was about portals, secret rooms, things of that nature. We have an episode of The Lifting on that. It would be too much of a huge topic to go into, but say a dimensional being a good one wanted to talk to somebody, wouldn't they try to show up as an imaginary friend or a doll that spoke to a little child? So to try to fix something. There was a dream that popped up where I was seeing this old nun-like figure, synchronistically. In the movie The Nun came out. It was very similar. Where there was this harsh nun that was abusing children, and I found out this was a real event that took place where the church was involved in a lot of garbage. But what happened was, of course, people know this part, but this one girl was hugging a doll in this dream, and there were benevolent beings trying to assist in that way that didn't want to get detected by the Orion nun woman that was in there, because these beings are at war with the Orions, and they always have been since early days. Ireland, Tuatha De Danann, Fomorian, and Tuatha De Danann clashing. That's where a lot of this comes from. But the point I'm making is that this was that kind of Elven Tuathan group that was doing this. The dolls, in this case, were a positive thing. I wanted to bring this up because this person makes really, really good material. And I know she would want me to advertise this, so she has a business called No Knit Sherlock. Her name is Susan Claudino. She makes these dolls. Beautiful pieces. You can see one behind me. See the golem that's sitting behind me there on the shelf there. Yeah, that's one of them right there. So
speaking of creepy,
yeah, but it's cool though, because
his eyes are looking into my soul.
See right there. Yeah, that's one of them right there. Yeah,
it looks cool.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, good benevolence will come in. Joanna also makes these consciousness constructs out of shells where good beings can speak through them too, like an edifice. So there are good aspects to this concept, benevolent aspects. But the Island of Dolls, no matter what the origin story or what the particular specifics about the origin story is, it became something of like this constant force of nature after a while. So and sometimes you want to audit that and flatline that after a while. I'm hoping at some point in the future there's some resolution to that particular thing. Like battlefields, we've been to battlefields like Gettysburg. We tried to resolve that. That's an overwhelming thing that a lot of people will have to get involved in. But
that is strong energies that live around those places. Because said you and I remember you and I went to Burwell and we went to Fort Hartsuff, and that one EVP that we got, what's going on here? A battle, stupid. They had a Civil War reenactment that day. And they didn't even really fight there. There was really no bloodshed other than cowboys versus Indians type of stuff, but so it's kind of, that shows you the power of what could be lurking around from places like that. And,
that lasts for centuries and centuries. Look like the where the 300 Spartans died in the Hot Gates or Thermopylae. I've heard stories about hauntings going on there, going all the way back to the 300 Spartans, like Plataea, where the biggest battle between the Persians and the Greeks took place. I've heard there's hauntings galore in that area, in some of those ancient sites.
And
all of it, yeah.
Gettysburg, especially too, like you were saying about that, the bloodshed and the energy and everything that went on there. I could see why that place would not, the energies dwindle down for centuries, in my opinion.
But, and it could last centuries more. We tried there. We used something called a prayer called the Law of One, where we basically tried to heal the spot. We opened it up for healing, but also on top of that, talk about Topa. Even if you clear a famous site like Gettysburg, there will be people that are going there and putting some of these energies back because their thought forms aren't, or their thoughts are still stuck also in that cycle. So say if Gettysburg were cleared today, you would have people going there, which is fine. You want to know the history of it. That's great. That's awesome. But at the same time, if you're reaffirming something that's still there, you just created a fresh tulpa that mirrored the original thing.
Well, to piggyback off of that, maybe the reenactments could really spark up the activity too. Maybe it awakens the spirits of the dead that are still lingering there.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I heard a story of a guy who was at I believe it was at Gettysburg. Was sleeping in his car, and what happened was he woke up at 1:32 in the morning, something like that, to a soldier looking at him he's in the driver's seat, there's a soldier on horseback looking at him saying, "Oh, we have to get word to Richmond," or I can't remember the line exactly. He found out he had a past life there at Gettysburg as one of the generals, essentially, and this soldier was coming to him. He was also reenacting this because he didn't know that his soul had lived that. So of course he was reenacting that. He was walking through his own footsteps on a regular basis, is what he was doing, and he was bringing resolution to that version of himself from then. Like when I went to Japan to the Temple of the 47 Ronin, I found out I was one of them. I went through the ceremony, everything with them over there, with the monks, everybody there, and it brought resolution to that particular avatar that existed in that time frame. And that's probably one of the only reasons we ended up going to Japan to begin with, was because it was a particular karmic resolution that had to take place, or trauma resolution there.
Sounds kind of interesting. I'd kind of like to do that past life regression and see, what the hell it might have been. Yeah, everybody kind of has inclinations and feelings of what they may have been in a past life.
And if you're not careful, you can mirror things that don't belong in this time frame too. Like if it's a trauma that you're in, that version of you could have had some kind of guilt cycle or something that really powerful. You could end up mirroring something in this time frame that doesn't belong here either. But on the flip side, it's there to bring resolve or resolution to as well. So if it lingers, like this is what I find interesting. I'll go into this real brief before we go in the next section. People think there's going to be an apocalypse or something like that. What they're remembering, it's a past life of the Scandinavian Ragnarok. That is the Asgard, or the large planet that's now the asteroid belt, or Mars, the disaster that befell the Sidonian Plateau back during the Orion Wars, the end of the Orion Wars. What ended up happening was people think, oh my God, something's going to happen. What they're doing is remembering. Then they're remembering this, thinking that something god awful is going to happen. What they were remembering is when something god awful did happen. And they're putting it in front of them instead of behind them and letting it go. So the soul is still part of it, is still auditing and stuck in the loop until it's acknowledged by this avatar now. So
kind of crazy.
Yeah, and it happens a lot, even with a smaller past life, not something as grandiose as, say, Asgard, but you have, like, say, a past life where you are a reenactor and you want to relive a certain battle. How do you know you weren't the person at that battle that now is stuck in a loop and you have to bring resolve to that? So, yeah. And reenacting history is great. It's great.
Sounds like a good movie to me.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like a great movie where somebody is that trying to bring resolve to that, and how do you know? Also, reliving the history is a good thing. There's a flip side to this. This is why some groups are trying to erase history, both in the Middle East when they're destroying the history, and as well as tearing down the statues and stuff here in the United States. They're trying to get people not to remember this so that it's an unresolved loop. So that's what the dark forces are trying to do, to make sure people don't resolve those loops. So
adding into the land of confusion. And I think that's a perfect time to transition into our next topic. For this creepy Christmas episode, we wanted to share the Island of the Dolls here and make it a little bit strange for you, strange and dandy. But obviously, it's that time of year to where we can get into next year's predictions. And, I want everybody to comment what they believe is going to happen in the comment section for 2024. What are your predictions? What do you think will happen? Give us your top three or just one prediction. It doesn't matter. But we want to hear from you and see if any of them come true. That way we can look back a year from now and see what might have happened. And piggybacking off of that, I really think that could be a continuation next year, a destroying of history. There might be more of these things that continue to happen, this just isn't appropriate anymore. We got to get rid of it. There's always a scapegoat explanation for everything. All the games that they play, like I said, I think most of us have found out that we're just pawns on a chessboard for the elite. And prime example, let's get into another prediction. I believe that there's going to be more bullshit billionaires buying out everything, buying out things. Prime example, Bragg's apple cider vinegar.
Hmm.
One of the most best healing tonics that can cure a lot of ailments inside of the body. Guess who just bought it?
Hmm.
Big BG, Bill Gates bought the company, and he's going to just
Oh, yeah.
destroy anything that's healthy inside of those tonics. Number one, I kind of lost respect for the Braggs family. I don't know if they still owned and operated it, but why sell out to somebody like that? It was nothing but a money scheme. He's got money to pay, and the people that he bought it from probably knew that, and they probably got three times more than what that company was actually worth. Probably, I don't know all the details, but I know he bought it. And so you're going to see more of that. You're going to see more of these large corporations and ultra elite billionaires buy out everything. I feel like, not overnight, but it's been a transition over the course of the last 3, 4, 5 decades, especially. But it's getting more rampant now. Why? Because I believe COVID was nothing but a mass transference of wealth scheme in many ways, where the rich got a lot richer and the poor are just getting poorer and poorer and poorer and poorer. You guys know that. I mean, everybody that's listening to this probably knows that. I'm a firm believer. If you don't make more than $125,000 per year, so if it's a couple, $250,000 per year, you're piss poor in my book. You can survive, you can be happy, but if you ain't making at least $50,000 per year, you're going to struggle, and you're just going to be living paycheck to paycheck, unless if you just eat beans and rice for supper every day and for every meal.
Or
And,
bugs if they had their way, it'd be bugs.
oh yeah, pushing that. So there's going to be this continuation agenda of the rich and elite and rich corporations buying out things, from simple food companies to the push for electric cars, small family farms being turned into corporate farms. It's just corrupt, and we go back to a year and a half ago. Look at all the food factories that were being burned down,
Yep.
and then food prices go up, and it's just bull crap. I mean, it's just nothing but a huge game, and we're all the players of the game that keep getting gut punched and abused, I feel.
Mhm. I think, well, the thing of it is, these cycles keep happening. These elite keep doing this until one day people get fed up and kick them in the balls. So it's like you got to also mass co-creation. It's not just people confuse when I say you got to fight this. People think, oh, we have to get a gun or a sword and fight this. That's not necessarily true. It's the recognition or the cognition something is happening. Then you begin to change this, you begin to demand a change, you actually become that change, and you begin to alter it worldwide. And that's what the key is here.
Well, and piggybacking off of JFK, I think he was the one that said, not ask, or was it him or was it somebody else? It might have been FDR. Ask not what you can do for yourself, but what you can do for your country.
That's JFK. That's JFK.
JFK.
Yeah.
And yeah, people need to stand up, and they need to stand up to this corruption. But everybody's so weak, everybody is so brainwashed, from TikTok, to their phones, zombified to everything that they have in front of them, and just completely ignorant to everything that's going on. I mean, they can get away with anything now, big or small, and it's right underneath our noses, and nobody can smell it.
And there are some people that have come in now, there's souls that have come in now that existed, say, in another time of war, like World War I or World War II. And there are forces out there that want to keep that repetitive cycle going. So
I'm surprised they didn't jump back into their grave and go hide for the next.
Right. But we found out there are souls that they want to change it. They've been through like the last 2 great wars, and they want to actually change this and prevent a third one. And I believe this is if the more people stop thinking that there's going to be some kind of apocalypse, resolve their past issues, come into the present, and actually see what's going on in the here and now, I think where it'll change the tides of war. Essentially, it's been a continuous war. Constantly, you're dealing with dark and light. Is essentially what you're dealing with. People scoff at that. They think that's a religious comment. Yes, it's a spiritual comment, but at the same time, it's a factual, truthful one. You're dealing with good versus evil at this point, and you're dealing with humans that are barely registering on the human consciousness scale anymore. Ones that have completely forsook their heart space, completely forsook anything that resembles any of the other classes of human here, like us, the everyday people. You're dealing with these elites that they don't even think like you. They will literally look you in the face and just laugh if you're going through a hardship. Even some of their stooges, like say if you have stooges like gang stalkers that are targeting you, if you were to confront one of these people, look them in the eye and say, "What the hell, man?" They'll be like, "Nope, just doing my job, just doing my job." That's how they respond. The ones that are beholden to these elite, and you would literally have to drum out maybe 5 or 6 elite layers in. Anything below that, I'm thinking you're all right. You can actually help those people. But anything above like layer 6 or 5, they're beyond help at this point.
Yeah.
So that's usually how we've seen it. As for predictions, do I think some things would have to get worse to get better? Yes, if the people didn't notice it in time. Do I think that it has to be in people's faces before they'll do it? Yes. Change it? Yeah. And that's essentially what COVID was about. You were basically getting a taste of what these people had to offer the public and what they were really doing in the background. It was basically they wanted to see what kind of consent they could get to screw you over that much more. And so they figured they'd throw a pandemic out there and say, okay, what's the tolerance point of people to where they'll bend a knee in fear? And that was it. So that was basically a big, basically they were waving their dicks at everybody saying, hey, look at us, but so that's essentially what that was. If you ever want to know what the crux is, it's basically divide, conquer, control, and that's always what it's always been about. There. So
well, to continue that, so that's one of the predictions, and then what about the UFO field? What do you think will happen? I'm thinking that there's just kind of like what we're doing now. There's going to be more manipulation, more deception, separating from the real cases to misidentified to secret technology. There's always a scapegoat with that field too, but I think that there's going to be even a more rampant UFO activity here in the near future. And we've already seen it. This last year, we kind of predicted it. The government's going to come out and admit that UFOs are real, and they did, and nobody cared.
Yeah, it's like nobody gave a shit. It's like one of the biggest things in history, and nobody gave a shit. So it was like,
now that's last week's news. There's a cat stuck up in a tree that a couple of firemen got.
They like to say that the UFO thing was like a distraction against Epstein's client list type of thing. They like to do that. They're sometimes mutually exclusive of each other. You have the UFO cover up. You have atrocities that have been committed that are extremely great, just as equally great as the Epstein case, in my opinion. So it's
and I still want answers for that. Hopefully that's a prediction that'll come true. Hopefully we get honest answers to that, which we never will.
Yeah, I think what happened with that briefly, then I'll go back to the UFO thing. What happened with that is his family threw him under the bus. He was the scapegoat so that his family could actually leave the area. They figured, okay, lower level cabal, we'll throw Jeffrey Epstein under the bus. His family are in Europe right now. I'd name them, but I don't want to name them on the show. But I know the name of the family. It's one of the cabal families. So they're a side one people don't know about. They tend to be based on the west coast of the U.S. So but what happened there was they threw him under the bus, and I still believe he's alive and on his island. They just wanted to basically throw a lower level under the bus, so people thought that not only justice was served a little bit, but so that they would forget the other guys were around. So, but also with the UFO thing, I feel you're going to see a lot more cases. You're going to they may even try to prep people to actually see having a race presented to people at one point too. They were going to do that earlier. I don't think they're going to do that as the first thing out of the gate. They may not do that one at all for a long time, but you're going to see even more shows, commercials. One thing that has happened, this is actually quite interesting. If people pay attention to commercials that are out there, like say you have Progressive, you see Sasquatch in the background being beamed up by a UFO. You see these commercials about
soft disclosure type stuff.
Soft disclosure, like you see car commercials with cat people in them in suits. You see the litter commercials with the cat people, dancing and doing stuff like that. You also see people that they show humans as like these different lizard cat types in like there's like a drink commercial and stuff like that. There's like energy drink commercials and stuff like that. What they're doing is they're basically saying, hey, these guys are your bros, these guys are your friends, they're equal to you, just accept them as equals. They're not scary, they're not monsters. So there are good aspects to this disclosure too, and you're going to actually see the volume go up, I feel, in that area as well, a lot by a lot.
Just as long as I don't get probed by a 20-foot medical device and the blood sucked out of me or something.
Yeah, or
I could
abducted,
see them introducing a malevolent race to us first, just because the elite one is all dead as far as I'm concerned.
This is why you see so many images of the Greys around, and you also see other races being presented too. You have good races that are trying to get people to decode and encode their forms. Then you have the Greys that image has been out forever. So yeah, you have two sides at work here that are trying to multiple sides that are vying for that first slot to be presented. I don't think that's plan A, though. I think it's somewhere in between somewhere, but you have other things that will come first. There was an experiment ran years ago where there was a security guard who was really close to retirement, an elderly guy, where they wanted to see an average Joe, what he would do if an alien walked up to him. This is what one of the groups out there did. Had an insectoid walk up to him. The guy had a heart attack and been keeled over dead within seconds. It's an encoding, decoding thing. Not only are you purging a belief system right off the bat, you're actually looking at something your eyes have never seen before, and you have
extreme
to blink
shock.
And blink. Yeah, and they wanted to judge an average Joe what that would look like. Also, in the religious field, you've also seen in UFO crash cases where they've invited a priest to give last rites to somebody and ends up being an alien. They wanted to judge what a religious person would think of something like this. They wanted to judge what a regular other Joe would do in a situation like that too.
You can tell that the Vatican has a huge interest in UFOs.
Most definitely. And the library that's there of knowledge is vast. Like, say, the Library of Alexandria, when Caesar conquered that, people thought he destroyed it. He took all the knowledge back with him to Rome. And then when eventually the church took form in that area, they claimed the knowledge that was in the Library of Alexandria. So that was actually kind of a basis for some of the knowledge that was built off of that original information. People think, oh, it was all burned. We went into a kind of a literary dark ages. No, Caesar took it from him and kept it, is what he did. He wasn't dumb. He wasn't going to get rid of knowledge he could use. And that's also another way Rome was really getting to power very quickly. Had all these advanced like techniques for building things. Of course, the Etruscans did that before him with the roadways and the sewers and all this other stuff. But there are innovations that all these seers and scientists and everybody came up with that were in that library. It was meant for the entire planet, but then Rome hoarded it, and they're still hoarding it to this day. So it's
Can you imagine seeing some of those things in there?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah, it's huge library there. Yeah,
that might be one of the places. If I could just choose to hang out for 2 hours and research, that might be one of the places that I'd choose.
I'm thinking this would be a good show at some point to do just something on the Vatican's library at some point. Pick a couple topics that have been leaked out of there, or just the scope of it in general.
And
I think would be great.
Who knows what could be hiding in there?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we've seen multiple movies. If people want to see some of the stuff that goes on the background, there's a movie called The Pope's Exorcist with Russell Crowe.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, great movie. It's like with the Mummy movie he was in as Dr. Jekyll, basically, and Mr. Hyde, the one with Tom Cruise. You see that actor in both parts, a secret society that's gathering knowledge, and also he's the Pope's exorcist who learns then of the secret society. You have Van Helsing that also had that same secret society. That's the church. Basically, somebody was saying that was the church in the background. Somebody was trying to say. But Pope's Exorcist, I think, is a really good one to give you a premise of what some groups, like there's this group called the Mozen, they hunt monsters and do stuff like that. They're associated with secret society. That's a great movie to show that kind of premise, too.
And when it comes to the prediction part of the episode, Please, please let there be a prediction of Pope's Exorcist 2 trailer next year. Let that come to fruition, please.
Yes, and also a series. I wouldn't mind seeing a TV series out of that too.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, highly recommended movie, guys. Normally, I'm not into the church stuff. That one was awesome.
Yeah,
So,
same.
yeah.
I think that's one of Russell Crowe's better movies, personally.
He did a fantastic job. Even though they do the embellishments, they still did well showing, possessions and things of that nature. And the secret society, that other priest invites
The
him in.
storyline that it had with
storyline.
it, that was very good. Very good.
And the character he played was a real guy. So that was basically wanted this information out there about demon possessions and such. So,
it's really crazy that you mentioned the Pope's Exorcist, because for some reason during this whole episode, that movie's been stuck in my head and I haven't watched it for 2 months. I don't know why.
It's been a month since we saw it, so it's like,
it's kind of crazy. I don't know. It just ran across my mind when we were talking about the Island of the Dolls. I was imagining like a priest cleansing the Island of the Dolls for some reason when we were talking.
You were picking up on an actual group. I did the same. There is a actual group out there, a response team that goes around, like you see at the end of the movie. I don't want to spoil it, but you do see a response team that is responding to demon intrusions and dimensional intrusions and such. So there is a truth to this. So that's what you're picking up on. There's a group called the Mozen that are soldiers. Talk about ghost soldiers. They're often depicted as ghost soldiers in photographs, but they're actually physical beings in another frequency that go around and deal with a lot of these haunted sites and these different demonic areas, just like Russell Crowe's character does. So it's similar. Also, Van Helsing, if people see the one with Hugh Jackman, same premise. So it's the exact same premise if people go back to that one. That's with werewolves and vampires, mind you, but it's the same thing. So but I know we were a little off track with the predictions, but I feel you're going to, as part of the predictions off that note, I'm thinking you're going to see more of the different paranormal activity that would require a response team like that. So I know we're probably at a point in the show where we can bring in Galactic.
Let me do one more thing to pick up on the predictions. I'm going to share an article here real quick, and by our favorite psychic, Baba Vanga.
Okay.
Here's her 2024 predictions. I'm just going to go to the end and read her predictions. And this is from Euronews.com. For the year 2024, she has made 7 prophecies. Strap in, not many of them are particularly comforting. The end of Putin. Vanga has predicted an assassination attempt on Russian President Vladimir Putin by a fellow countryman next year. Number 2, terrorist and biological attacks. She warned of increased terrorist attacks in Europe, as well as predicting a big country will conduct biological weapons tests or attacks in 2024. 3, a huge economic crisis. It will apparently impact the global economy next year, with rising debt levels and escalating geopolitical tensions being major factors. Number 4, weather troubles. She has foretold that there will be terrifying weather events and natural disasters next year, and that was actually one of my New Year's predictions I didn't talk about. I think there's going to be more solar flare activity, disrupting technology and everything.
And that's different from the solar flash. The solar flash isn't the sun flash isn't the thing, but a solar flare event. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
I think it'll be more frequent. Alongside one of my predictions about back before we even did a show, back when I was running my original conspiracy sector back in the day, I think you're going to see more news. You have to search for it, but I think you're going to see more sinkholes once again. I think kind of a sinkhole pandemic, just with the crumbling ground and everything that's happening. But number 5, more cyber attacks. There will be a rise in cyber attacks, according to the late clairvoyant. Advanced hackers will target crucial infrastructure like power grids and water treatment plants, posing national security threats. So cyber attacks mixed with possible solar flares, that's a dangerous combination right there. Medical breakthroughs. It's not all doom and gloom. Vanga reportedly said that there will be new treatments for incurable diseases, including Alzheimer's and cancer in 2024. That would be interesting if that comes true. Number 7, technological breakthrough. She also predicted there will be a major breakthrough in quantum computing. There we have it. Which ones do you think are likely to occur? Just so you know, prior to her death, Vanga also predicted the resolution of the world hunger crisis between 2025 and 2028, communism's return by 2076, and humanity achieving time travel in 2304. Jeez.
Okay.
And the world's end, according to her, is set for 5079. You've
Huh,
been
that would definitely change. The one thing I will say is people do. There is the timeline jumping that does take place, and there's also the multiverse to consider as well, where what you're predicting could be a variation of multiple time frames. People always ask me, "Well, what's the future?" And I always say, "Which one?" Because you have multiverse in play. What doesn't happen here happens in a different universe. And also, they would, what quantum physics would say, if you observe a particular subject, it will like observe a wave or particle, it cut that wave or particle off. So that's actually true. But as far as manifesting goes, if you're observing something, it gets ingrained to your brain and it makes it true. Whatever reality you're grounding in, your observable reality, you're not seeing the others overlaid onto you, except if you're tuned into them. So some of these seers are seeing some of those as well. Some of these other branch timelines. If people see the series Loki, you're going to know what I'm talking about. But it's like wonderful series as far as knowing how some of the different branches and parallel timelines operate. But you basically, you're grounded here in this reality. You're perceiving it, so therefore you're thinking there is just one reality because you're looking at it like Schrodinger's cat. It's neither dead nor alive because you're not looking at it. But if you're looking at it, it's solid. So if you're grounded in this reality, you're only seeing this one. But if you're perceptive, you're starting to skew off and see all of these other realities and which one could align to the timeline you're in, or you bounce to a different one. I've heard that theory as well. The reason I bring this up is the multiverse has been pervasive lately. This has been a topic that has been everywhere lately. And yes, I know, Isaac, it's everything everywhere all at once. I understand, but it's infinite diversity, infinite combinations. If you go with Spock's quote, but this is one thing I'm thinking you're going to actually. I know this is a cheap prediction. I know infinitely it's going to be predicted every single year because the multiverse. I get the joke, Isaac. Yes, but it's but you're going to start seeing more and more about the many worlds theory, multiverse theory. I think is going to pop up too a lot more. You're going to see a lot more movies and shows involving the multiverse. Even Marvel, Disney has been going that route too. Even though that's a cabal family, you're starting to see a lot more of the multiverse. This is also how different companies merge different concepts because any idea will fit a canon script because if you use the multiverse or time travel. You say, oh, the timeline got screwed up. Star Trek likes to use temporal Cold War as an excuse to make an alteration, or parallel universe to accept an alteration in the canon. So you're going to see more of that in shows, and you're going to see more of it in the scientific aspects and quantum mechanics, I believe, too. So the many worlds theory or multiverse theory, you're going to see it pop up a lot. So I feel. We've been watching a lot of stuff on it. It's all over the place right now, but I think it's going to continue to grow. So,
perfecto. Popping through.
Yeah, I'm going to say, okay. We had some energetic incidences this morning, so I'm going to see who is it that is actually going to speak. I know Isaac is murmuring in the background, but okay, let's see. This time it's going to be the forest people, that are going to talk this time. Fuma is one. We dealt with him and his family in Arizona, and very kind group. There's also locals we've dealt with here too. We've channeled them a number of times. I have a Rumble channel called The World of Sasquatch that has them all on there. Any show that involved the forest people, I usually put a copy of that. If it's a channel,
I'll have to try to check it out. I still haven't even been to Rumble once yet.
And there's a conspiracy sector Rumble too, folks. So it's if you're seeing this on our main YouTube, just know that I've created a conspiracy sector website and Rumble that has nothing but on there. But if it involves the forest people, I usually put a copy of that episode on their channel as well. And I'm also going to do one about Dogman too. So that we have shows about Dogman that I haven't seen the light of day in 3 years. So they've been stored away. So that's going to make a reappearance as well. So Fuma, let's see. Ooh, hang on. All right, crystal here. The balancing of these energies is quite difficult. people are going through their own catharsis right now of where they actually belong in reality, what they actually attach to, what their true purpose is in life currently. I know the topic, of course, you have the predictions last and you have the Island of the Dolls. But one thing I will say on the Island of the Dolls, though, it has been touched on correctly in all facets and formats. Did something genuinely happen to a little girl in that particular way? Yes, but it happened in multiple places, not in a multiverse sense, but there were multiple deaths throughout that part of the country, even spanning a couple decades prior to that. They chose one case and they latched on to this to create a legend. And when you do this, it can either backfire with the formation of a tulpa or a formation of an energy, or it can bring resolve. Just like years ago when he was in Lincoln, Nebraska. Oh, the instances that happened at his Hartley Street house. He had the opportunity of actually creating a legend surrounding another haunted spot, like you see the Sally house or the Vallista Axe murder house. He was advised against this because of the creation of a very tulpa energy he was attempting to avoid. There was a demon there, so when he uploaded a film, he told everybody, do not go there, the demon is gone. Do not adhere to a legendary status. With his writing skill, he could have easily done this. And I'm not poo-pooing this particular thing if you want to create something very creative, like a movie, a script, or whatnot. But sometimes without wording that particular scripting, you can create something in reality. And the Island of the Dolls straddles both of those particular concepts. Something from reality that was given an epic status, let's just say. And this is how this happens. And since we are telepathic beings, we speak in our own languages, which is mainly what you would consider a mix of Native American Indian and Hawaiian, because since we are of Lemurian descent lineage or Mu, I myself am 300 years old. I was around also in Jamestown at the time of its formation. But with this, I've noticed time and again, people create the very problems by which then they need a solution to. Granted, there are bad guys that enhance these things. People haunt their own spaces, and people also their topos are enhancing a particular concept or one that is fed over many, many decades. Now, the predictions, you both have, let's just say, hit the proverbial nail on the head when it comes to these specific predictions. I know the multiverse thing is kind of a cheap shot because everything everywhere happens all at once, and so therefore, yes, it will happen even if it doesn't. Yes, I understand that's a cheap shot, but he was correct about the actual verbiage of this as well. So I can go into questions if you like.
Yeah, is there a way, if you're entering some of these areas that are tulpa created, if it's more of a toxic tulpa, evil tulpa, is there ways of protecting yourself from such sort of thing?
Oh yes. For one, not feeding the tulpa is the main one, because it will become almost like a vampire to get you to feed it. It is more of a perpetual motion machine or an ongoing storm type of thing. What you do is you go in there with not only the mindset of maybe uncreating the tulpa, where you trace it backwards and uncreated. You even can declare that beforehand, or you declare yourself protected and standing outside of that tulpa energy. You've declared yourself sovereign and independent of any vacuum that is created from that area. And also outwardly protections, he uses bracelets and stones such as shungite, silver, amethyst, bloodstone, things of that, tourmaline, things of that nature as well. If you combine outward protection with the mindset that the tulpa has no effect on you and you're grounded to the earth at all times, then you actually are protected at that point.
Other than the Island of the Dolls, is there any other kind of tulpa-like ridden places that just attain this strange, creepy energy that you know of?
Yes, some of the things you hear about in legends say if there's a particular monster that is in control of a spot or is guarding a spot. Now, there are, of course, the dogmen and ourselves that guard portals. Then you have, of course, the Loch Ness Monster. Aside from these that are actual reality, Loch Ness Monster is actually a dinosaur that travels through a portal or causeway to an older version of Earth, primordial Earth. And that is happening because it is lined with quartz in a ring-like formation under the ground. It's based also on an old piece of technology from pre-Atlantean times. And also, where tulpas form is when a legend has said that there is a monster off the edge of the world, for instance, or if there is a monster in an area that people are forbidden to go, or there's a curse in an area where people are forbidden to go. People power this and then empower the curse and the very beings that want to create the tulpa to maybe guard their hideout. Aliens like to do this in a neighborhood, whereas you have a creepy house, for instance, that may not be haunted, but they might be using technology, or military might be using a technology to keep people out. Very much like how in your Robin Hood Prince of Thieves movie in Sherwood Forest, the bandits went in there, created a ghost story or a haunting story so people would stay out of there and be afraid to enter. And they had wind chimes to boot to make the spooky sounds. To sum it up, any type of myth where you hear of a monster guarding an area is usually a tulpa, basically saturated environment.
So, like, if you've been cursed, is there ways of figuring out whether, ways of tracking your curse, or ways of knowing that you've been cursed if you feel like you just are? Is there ways of figuring that out?
Yes, sometimes you will see actually, most times, what it attacks first is your abundance. When you see a lack of abundance, or things dry up, for instance, or seeing confusion all over, for instance, think of not only that with mass confusion, but that's a tulpa mixed with mind control, mixed with cursing. It is basically curse magic mixed with artificial intelligence in that case. But if you feel you've been cursed, you will see the signs by finances being depleted, or you will see the signs by health being depleted. That could be oppression, possession as well. But there are also some people laying curses upon, like with voodoo dolls, or with the he likes to say the good old fashioned hair and teeth curse, where the teeth and hair fall out. This is something that can also backfire if you use dark magic. Of course, it can mirror back on yourself. The only time that it's applicable is if it's a self-defense move against such magic, you see. But if you start seeing these things, that's generally cursed territory.
Very good. Thank you so much. That was pretty mind-opening.
Yes, so thank you. My people have not spoken on this particular program before. To recap, I am Fuma, and I am from your state of Arizona. And his family and ours got to know each other quite well. He communicates with the forest people quite often. One thing I will warn people about in the curse area, though, there is through the multiverse, there is a cloud of confusion that also comes from other variants of yourselves in the other timelines, where you can cause a destabilization by which then other versions of yourself will focus on yourself. How you defeat this is by remaining grounded here in the here and now, and bring out the most peaceful and calm version of yourself, the most, as you would say, the optimum version of yourself. Therefore, like in the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, when she engaged in conflict in the multiverse, it created a huge pendulum swing. When her character then brought peace to the multiverse, it brought about calm. This is what's warranted in a case such as this as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much for popping through. That was good.
Thank you. Do you have any other further questions?
I think you pretty well summed it up. I just wanted to know about the tulpas and curses and what we can do to repel them and avoid these kind of strange areas.
Yes, I understood. It sounds like I understate the matter, but it is actually, in some areas, it's quite severe. It can cause insanity, and also it can interrupt your own evolutionary process as well. Chemicals also fall under more of a curse as well, but that can be changed with change of diet as well. So thank you. I will back off now. Thank you. Yeah, Fuma, he's very, very interesting. We've known him since we moved to Arizona. He was also a practical jokester. Like when me and Joanna arrived in Prescott, he ran up to the side of the house in the middle of the night, hit the side of the house with his hand, and then howled really loud to scare the crap out of us. So it's like they are physical beings that they shift in and out of frequency. And I do want to show something to everybody. I had this made of him, and I do sell these currently. This was a photo taken on Thumb Butte in Arizona. This is him right here. This is Fuma right here, and
Interesting.
this was on Thumb Butte in Prescott. And at the very end, if people go up to the top of Thumb Butte and then go all the way to the very end, back where those homes are, back in there, he stepped in front of the camera. I got pictures of his brothers too. One is from the shoulders up. I got his brother Mirnak. I got his brother Seymour, just the face fading into, our reality. I got Fuma again with just his face inside a rock crevice, full face, but it's hard to distinguish. That is the most distinguishable photograph of a Sasquatch that I've gotten right there. And I put this on this mug, and the phrase he likes to use is "analum always." And what that means is that's a Lemurian word, or also Forest Person word, meaning calm. Analum means calm. So in their language, it's a spell word. If you say it the way they say it, very throaty, like analum, you're bringing about a spell calm. And they do things a lot by vocals to open portals and to shift frequencies and light and sound frequencies. So that is how he became visible. He actually probably met me to halfway in frequency, and that's how he got to that visible right there. So some do that. Other ones are more solid, like us, that don't access some of those magical abilities just exactly like us. Others are more of an Anakam line, they're called, that they have a lineage that they brought more things out of their genetic memory. Fuma is one of those. So some are associated with aliens. He's one of those that they go into a little orb. That's a spaceship that has a dimension within a dimension, like the TARDIS on Doctor Who, where they can go in. That's why people think they transformed into orbs, and they have not. They've just gone into another holographic dimension within a spaceship. So it's so the people think they transform. They're just going in and out of basically walked out of a door and back out. So it's
very interesting.
Yeah. So we came to find that out there. The forest people are showing it of themselves, but it's I think that'd be one we could hit on too. But this has been great. I don't know if you have anything else to add before we take it out.
I think we're at the point to where we can round out another year, and I just want to wish everybody a blessed New Year, a Merry Christmas, and stay strong, and let's get through another year and get older and wiser yet again. Survive through the trenches.
Exactly. And I'm also being made vaguely aware that I forgot to open the circle properly. I'm doing that and closing this circle as we close this episode out. So thank you everybody for watching this episode of Conspiracy Sector. You are now leaving the Conspiracy Sector. So thank you, everybody.